And you see all sorts of different behaviors as people, what you realize is people don't really know how to act in the metaverse yet. You know, when you go into
Do we know how to act in the real world?
better, at least
Okay.
there's some definitions,
Yeah.
right?
Welcome to Lenovo Late Night IT, an unfiltered, no-nonsense show about technology. I'm your host, Baratunde Thurston, and tonight, we're talking about the metaverse. What even is the metaverse? Is it good for anything? And did I overpay for that virtual timeshare? Yes. Yes, I did. Schooling us tonight is Amy Lou Abernethy, whose literal job is teaching people inside the metaverse. She's the founder of AMP Creative, a company that designs immersive learning experiences for enterprise-level organizations. Their VR-based empathy experiences are being used by some of the world's largest companies to raise awareness of workplace bias and drive positive behavioral change. Also with us is Jeff Wong, a Silicon Valley veteran with a track record of building successful businesses that is way too long to list. He's currently the Global Chief Innovation Officer of EY, one of the largest professional services organizations in the world. Jeff is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, the World Economic Forum, and the Aspen Global Leadership Network. Damn, Jeff! He's spoken and written extensively about the metaverse, and he's got the hot takes. Isn't that right, Jeff?
Definitely.
All right, here's my first question for both of you. Is the metaverse a meme?
I think the metaverse is a real thing,
Okay.
not just a meme.
I think the metaverse, we see glimmers of it. I definitely don't think it's a meme.
Okay.
But I also think that it's this vision for us to collectively work toward.
So I hear people refer to the metaverse with Web3 and blockchain and crypto. I hear people talk about avatars and video gaming and Ready Player One. Amy Lou, what's your definition, briefly, of the metaverse?
It's complex. It's where a bunch of different technologies converge. It is something we're extrapolating, okay?
Okay.
So we're like taking what exists now and we're thinking of what it's going to look like in the future. But I think some things that are really important to say that here we are, we're in the metaverse. Co-presence.
Co-presence.
So you're with other people.
Okay.
You're with other,
Like now, like I'm co-present with you.
we are co-present.
Okay.
Yeah. But you're not co-located. So we can be together even though we are far apart.
Whoa, mind-blowing.
It's persistent.
Okay.
So it isn't a game that you start and then it's over when you leave. And it's embodied, right? Like it's a spatial experience.
Okay. Co-present, persistent, embodied.
I think that there are seven.
Oh
that
my
somebody
goodness.
like wrote a,
We don't have
a
to get to all
paper
seven.
about
That's too
seven.
many
But
things
those
to
are
keep track of.
those are three that I'll. And what about you, Jeff? What do you
Yeah.
think?
So I look at metaverse and Web3 as two separate definitions
Great.
that do have an intersection.
No.
And I take a very broad definition of the metaverse.
Okay.
For me, it's easy. I just say it's any 3D immersive environment. So it includes a lot of those things that you described. So it can include some of the games, but it also includes a persistent, co-present environments where we're not together physically. But I think Web3 is a little bit different,
Okay.
right? There you start to think about things like cryptocurrencies, DAO, DeFi, all the fun buzzwords
We don't want to mess with all that.
that are, exactly.
No, literally, we don't want to mess with it. It's dangerous.
It's dangerous. It could be dangerous. So that's another part of the world. And then you have the intersection where you do have metaverses, in my definition, these immersive environments, where you use blockchain and cryptocurrencies to do exchanges and
Okay.
to sell things and buy things and trade things. But you don't need to do that. You can have a metaverse without blockchain and
Great.
cryptocurrency. You can have cryptocurrency trading without a immersive environment.
Okay.
Do you imagine like a definition of the metaverse where there isn't co-presence? It's immersive, but you're
Alone.
You can have that if you're in a
That's
game.
kind of like a lot of metaverses right now. You're alone in them because there's nobody hanging out in a lot of these places.
There's no one to hang out with you. So you can be playing a game, which is an immersive environment. To me, that's still a metaverse where you may be interacting with AI-driven avatars.
That's interesting.
That's also sounds
not
like
another
Twitter. A
person.
lot of bots.
That's
A lot of
interesting.
bots.
Yeah.
So the other contradiction, I think, in the metaverse definition has to do with, haven't we already seen it? Second Life is well in our past. It promised and delivered on a lot of these things, though in a more rudimentary fashion. versus the promises of this extrapolation. 10 years from now, we will be in the metaverse. So is it behind us or is it ahead of us? What do you think?
Yes.
Oh, come
Yes.
on now.
It's not a destination where we're going to arrive and it's done.
It's the journey.
Well, I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
It's a concept that can be more or less fully realized.
Okay.
I think that there are a lot of people who would say that Second Life was absolutely immersive, like they in their minds, it felt very, very real. But for others, there's a lot of like friction. It's a 3D space, but you're only accessing it in a two-dimensional desktop environment.
Right.
And so the ability to fully immerse yourself, to get that layer off and really be able to experience like the spatial experience,
Yeah.
I think that's the promise of something that spatial computing would deliver on.
Where do you fall on this spectrum of we've been there, we haven't arrived yet?
I think that it actually follows a similar pattern to most technology.
Okay.
Right? You have this earlier version of a technology, and it actually was very cool and amazing for the time.
Like dial-up bulletin boards.
Back in the day, that was very cool for the
Yeah,
time, right?
yeah.
But then it evolves and it becomes better and different. And I think that we are on Emmylou said it, we are on this evolutionary pathway. So we're at a different, interesting point now. But I do think there's a lot in the hype curve that we're sitting in that people are talking about the promises that are to come, but they're acting as if it were today. And it isn't there yet.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It's coming. We've seen this movie before.
So speaking of hype, we've seen a lot of hype around sort of performative commercial uses of the metaverse. Lil Nas X does a concert in a virtual space, which is actually pretty interesting. Luxury brands want to convince us to buy virtual versions for real money, which is weird, maybe cool, maybe disturbing. And but on the other side of all this commercial work, you have possible enterprise business use of the metaverse. What types of things do you see happening on this less flamboyant, less public, less headline-grabbing side of this virtual space?
You're absolutely right. The luxury brands, entertainment companies, events, sort of big
Yeah,
concerts,
big
things
cons,
like that, very popular right now, getting the most press, but also getting a lot of traction inside of these metaverses.
Okay.
But what we also see from an enterprise perspective is, in particular, digital twin concepts. So can you rebuild your factory floor? Can you model your vertically integrated company inside the metaverse and use that type of visual environment to show you, how you might make improvements to your factory floor, how you might streamline your supply chain or your company. And so those are really interesting early use cases that we see in the enterprise.
All right, so let's say you've got your supply chain or your factory warehouse and you've cloned it in the metaverse. First, can you tell me like how much of the real world can we represent in the virtual world? Is it 70%, 95%? I mean, I know there's physics engines in a lot of these simulated environments, even thinking about something like Unreal as one example, where the wind can really blow and we can kind of model that out. So what does it mean to create a digital twin of a supply chain, a factory, or warehouse?
A lot of it means actually is the math associated with the different supply chain elements.
Okay.
Right, so that I think you can model quite well because it's around, how long does something take to be produced inside this factory? Therefore, I have to have the trucks on time, I have to have the boat, I have to have the airplane on the other side of it. So I think that there is a lot to be learned through modeling the math of your supply chain and looking at what the different interruptions that might happen and how that might have downstream impacts on your supply chain. You can do that without the visualization as well today, which is what makes it easy for us to put into a 3D visual environment, which I think just makes it easier for the users to look at and understand the dynamic of what's going on.
Yeah, and there are other things we can do with digital twins. Training. You can put people in that factory in like maybe really dangerous situations or psychologically dangerous situations, like there's a time crunch or there's like, a fire or whatever. You can train people in a spatial
Like NASA
area.
does.
Sure.
Right? Astronauts go through simulations, pilots,
Absolutely.
flight
Pilots.
simulator.
Yeah.
You simulate takeoff, landing, crashes, all kinds of
Doctors
events. Yeah.
are simulating, are learning surgery through simulations. People who work in like data centers or out in the field in really dangerous work situations, you can model that. You can have them go through these simulations under different circumstances and really get like muscle memory and psychological defenses around interacting in these environments.
So you can use the virtual world to affect the real world as a training ground, both as a human, but also for a system. Comparing it to the internet, I think is what also scares and attracts people. Yeah. I remember when having a website was this far out, luxury, nerdy, weird thing. And then it became necessary for any business to have a representation within the hypertext protocol. Where do you think we're falling in terms of businesses needing to have a metaverse presence?
A metaverse presence or a metaverse strategy?
Ooh, let's pull those apart.
You know, if we have another pandemic, having a strategy for virtual events in the metaverse, I think, is going to behoove like any company that wants to have people come together, collaborate, interact in a more immersive way than on, VC, on video conference.
Thanks for using the word behoove, by the way. I don't hear that nearly enough.
Yeah, I'll take a $10 bill for every $10 word I use.
So how much does the average person actually know about the metaverse? Do they even care? We sent our producer Alex Stone out to the streets in a segment we call Tech Walks to find out.
Everyone's talking about the metaverse. But what is the metaverse? Where is the metaverse? Am I in the metaverse right now? And if so, why is my avatar so jowly? To find out more, I took to the streets of New York City. What is the metaverse?
Spider-Man jumps to mind.
I mean, do you know what the metaverse is?
Not a clue.
I think it's the virtual world that you can enter into. It's computerized, it's virtual reality, and in the metaverse you can do a number of things. You can play games, you can, I imagine, learn things.
If you had to guess, what do you think the most someone has spent on a virtual property is?
It's like maybe like 10,000.
What would you say if I told you it was $4.5 million?
See, I'm simultaneously surprised and not surprised. 'Cause
I read that someone spent over $4,000 on a virtual handbag in the metaverse, which is more than it costs in real life.
I think that's very absurd. I don't know. Maybe if I had the money, I would definitely do it.
What if you're just really unhappy with your life? You don't like the way you look? Do you think I should live in the metaverse? Someone actually got married in the metaverse, married on virtual reality.
And it's legal?
I haven't heard about that, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they vowed to stay together through good times and bad, sickness and health, and until the 2-hour battery life on the device bid them part.
Even how long you work on that one for?
A couple days.
Yeah.
Actually, it was his second marriage. He referred to it as installing an update. All right, that's a terrible joke.
Yeah, it is.
What's an avatar?
So your avatar is that person that you can make up whatever you want, like in order to be like social inside the metaverse.
Well, I've done virtual reality and I don't think I had an avatar, but I'm assuming like if you were to date in the metaverse, you'd create some kind of avatar, which is basically like, I don't know, a rendering of like you or your character.
I need an avatar.
What would your avatar look like?
And ta-da!
Oh, wow. Wait, that's really good. Look. Yeah.
So what did you all think? Any surprises, any insights you got from watching this?
Oh, I love the answer Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I don't know where it came from, but I loved it. It was very, very funny. I think it reflects what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Different people have different definitions of the metaverse and different ideas of what it is and what it can be for them.
I'm not surprised that a lot of people were confused by it. It's not intersecting with a lot of people's lives right now.
Yeah.
But the people who had experienced it, they could speak really well to it. And I think that shows you that once you do experience this very experiential thing, it becomes easy to talk about and a very human, relatable thing to do.
Kind of like The Matrix. You have to see it for yourself. And I'm done! That was my Morpheus. Thank you so much. So I really want to get deeper into this with you, Amy Lou. Besides the training that we've talked about, what does learning in the metaverse look like, and where is it more valuable than learning in real life, so to speak?
I think that what I get excited about when I think of learning in the metaverse is the ability to prepare digital environments, like create, a world or an environment where people can come and interact with it from around the world. Wherever they are, they can come together, they can interact in this prepared environment, and they can learn together. It's the co-presence, the ability that no matter what's going on with flights or health or weather, that we can come together and be together and collaborate together.
Okay. I'm thinking about my own educational journey, especially in grade school, where, you talk about the world and then there's a map of the world that the teacher pulls down, or a physical globe, so you get a sense of relative space. Then there's a VHS tape. But getting inside of something is a whole nother thing. Yeah. And so if you're learning biology and you're traveling down the bloodstream and seeing a T cell or a red blood cell, that may work with people's brains differently
100%.
Than reading about it or playing with a clay model or watching a video about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And what happens, when you change things? How do you see how those play out over time? Can you speed that up?
Yeah.
Can you reverse it? That's really important. But as we're talking about this, I also want to acknowledge that if we're talking about all the things that this technology affords, kids in school, we need to talk about accessibility. I mean, and accessibility means a lot of different things. Like, it's a huge umbrella term. But this is also something that we need to be really cognizant about. Are we going to replicate the issues that are in the real world in this new technology?
Yeah.
We are.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then how do we get this technology into the hands of the greatest amount of people?
So the metaverse can be a lot about games. So we're going to play a metaverse-themed game that has to do with translating some of this tech speak into regular language. So you're going to get cards with words related to the metaverse on them. One of you will hold them up on your head. The other will shout out clues to the person holding the word to try to figure out what that is. Are you ready to play?
Yes.
We were ready.
Yes.
Amy Lou, I'm going to have you lift your cards first in 3, 2, 1, go.
The person.
Avatar.
Nice. Next one. Go. Keep going.
You wear this to listen when you're.
Headphones?
Keep going. Keep going.
A headset?
There. Go.
Nice. Next. All right.
We talked about this.
The metaverse.
It's extra.
Outside
the
of
world as it exists.
virtual reality?
Yeah, the other
digital
one.
twin?
The other one.
Augmented reality?
Yeah,
Augmented
yeah,
reality.
there we go.
All right,
There we
keep
go.
going.
Keep
20
going.
seconds.
Pass. Something link fence.
Blockchain?
There we go.
Wow, you went a long way for that one.
Exactly.
One more. Let's go.
The movie that Spielberg, I think, did.
Ready Player One.
There we
Nice.
go.
Okay, time.
Oh man. Cool.
How many did we get?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got
Minus
four.
the pass.
Minus the haptics.
Five.
Yeah, so that's
That was
five.
haptics. I was like,
Haptics. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
hard one. Are you ready?
I am ready.
In 3, 2, 1, start.
Okay, so this was early, we talked about this early on, 2D, but a metaverse of a kind back in the day.
Oh,
it's
Second
still
Life.
going. Yes.
Nice.
All right, so you double this in virtual reality and it looks just like the one in the real world. We talked about this. You create a replica of what exists in the real world.
Digital twin.
Yes.
Nice. Keep going. All right, halfway there.
Okay, so this was a movie. The twins made it. It spawned a whole bunch of stuff. The guy that everybody loves, what's his name? Keanu Reeves.
Matrix.
Yes.
All right.
You need to be able to do gestures in virtual reality, and you need this type of to follow along.
Hand gestures, gloves.
So in order to follow along with it, you need to blank it.
Track
Hand,
it?
yes.
Woo, you got it. Time. Nice work. All right. The company that we shall not name, which renamed itself, a lot of their premise for the metaverse is around office productivity. It's around virtual workspaces, around an alternative to video conferencing. Do you think we're going to be working in the metaverse instead of physical offices? Is that likely in our future?
So it's interesting, it's fun. There are definitely use cases where this works out well. But I do think the technology needs to develop before we start thinking about ourselves in using a significant amount of time in the office with a headset on. And this is something I think about a lot, which is what's the difference between the hype curve and the value curve? What's the real thing that you can do right now versus what is the promise of the future?
Yeah.
There's a lot of promise for the future, right? When you start looking at the development of, again, the more expensive headsets that you have right now in particular, the photorealism for me, which for me is a feature that I like, that it will make it seem like I am actually sitting here with you at this table and with Amy Lou at this table. For me, that will provide an office type environment where I can start seeing the reactions on your faces and seeing when Amy looks at me and says, I don't know if I agree, but I can see that physical and feature reaction, which is important. Today, it's more cartoon-like. So it's hard for me to see what the reaction of the audience is. What does it feel like? So I do think there's a difference between hype and reality today, but there is tons of promise for this in the future.
There was a study, pretty small, but it found that after working in VR for a week, productivity was lower, anxiety was higher, there was simulation sickness. It's not there. What do you see in terms of not just the training and the kind of the opting in and out in these moments, but the working in?
When people are coming together on platforms where co-presence is a strong feeling, where people can have conversations that are layered, like many people can be talking at once, you know, you can turn over here, you can have a spontaneous interaction with someone. Those sorts of things are delightful. They bring distributed teams together in a way that a VC call cannot. And those kinds of bonding experiences can be positive for productivity.
So I've heard you like to use the term microdosing the metaverse.
So I did not coin that phrase, to be really clear, but microdosing the metaverse, I think, really explains a lot of our metaverse experiences right now. Because A, they're trippy. When people put on a headset and are in one of those environments for the first time, it kind of blows their mind a little bit. You know, it is an amazing feat that we have created. But it's just this little bit. It's not the full trip. You know, and we've got a long way to go. But I'm super excited to be on this journey. I mean, I am really, really excited about it.
Where do you hang out in the metaverse?
So I've been spending a lot of time trying out different productivity apps, really understanding what does my personal productivity mean when I'm immersed and don't have distractions. Also, meeting applications where you get to join your colleagues instead of a Zoom meeting. You're all together in a space, and there are lots of platforms like that.
And what about you, Jeff? Where do you hang in the metaverse?
So we've been doing a lot that has to do with the enterprise in the metaverse. So I've been probably the most time spent in meetings that we're holding and throwing with different types of groups around the world, just trying to see how the environment can work for company meetings, for brainstorming, for ideas. And you see all sorts of different behaviors. What you realize is people don't really know how to act in the metaverse yet. You know, when you go into
Do we know how to act in the real world?
Better. At least there's some definitions, right? But when you're actually in the metaverse, there's some really cool things that happen where people come dressed as they would like, the hairstyle as they would like. They get to express themselves more fully, and I love that aspect of it. And then there's some etiquette things that they don't understand, right? Where the last meeting I was on, my avatar was presenting in front of a virtual screen, right? Screen in my back, and somebody kept moving the screen because they didn't realize everyone could see them moving the screen, right? So there's these etiquette things that as we move the enterprise into these types of conferences or meetings, you have to think about how do people react and how do you train them to react inside this environment. How do we do the company meetings? Do people like that? do they think, oh my gosh, I have this headset on? I have to tell you, they have pictures of me. I'm on the meeting and I'm sitting here with the headset. I'm holding it up the whole time because it's just too heavy.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering is everyone experiencing that? So we have to live it in order to understand it.
Thank you both so much for having this conversation with me. I really enjoyed it.
It's been fabulous. I've
Thank
had a
you.
lot of fun.
And that's it for tonight's episode of Lenovo Late Night IT. Thanks to our guests, Jeff Wong and Amy Lou Abernathy. I'm Baratunde Thurston, and I'll see you in the metaverse. Maybe.